Welcome back. Somebody said there'd be a QR code back here. Who's in charge of putting up the QR code, huh? Now I've created a panic back there. I just had two small announcements. There will eventually be a QR code here, and if you scan it, you can access all the photographs that people have been taking of you around the conference. There it is. Scan that quick before it goes away, and you can get all your photographs to fill out your WeChats and your LinkedIns and your Facebooks to really advertise the fact we're doing this, and it's going well. The second quick thing to mention is that I spoke earlier about the posters, and I hope you've all started looking and thinking about which ones you want to vote for. You'll find a neat little innovation that we have down there, which is a big flat screen TV, which is a touch screen. And if you go to that TV, you can actually select the individual posters, and you will see the first phase of feedback that the judges gave those posters, the criticisms, how the team could be improved, how the story could be improved. So go take a look at that, and you'll learn a lot more about the process of becoming investor ready in these projects. So not to get too far back behind schedule, but of course the JITRI folk are very tired of hearing me to complain that I'm a physicist, not a meetings organizer, and I did this under a lot of stress, but I should have done a lot better than spending months organizing this summit, only to suddenly realize a month or so ago that I had no gender diversity in my opening plenary. That came as a bit of a shock. We need to do better. I need to do better. And there is no one better than Professor Duygu Çelik to show the way to do that. She has been an advisor to the president of TÜBİTAK since 2021 and has been actively working on gender equality in research frameworks. She's a partner in the EU-supported Gender Action Plus project and a member of the Equality, Diversity and Inclusiveness Group of the Global Research Council. So please give a warm welcome to Professor Duygu Çelik to discuss gender equality for sustainable innovation and societal impact.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. First of all, I would like to thank you for the organizer, Paul, Professor Hasan Mandal, for their invitation. Thanks very much for giving a chance to talk on this important topic, gender innovation, innovation to impact and strategies for sustainable solutions. It is really an honor to speak about this integrating gender dimension in research and innovation here at the WAITRO Summit. Today we will discuss how we consider both biological differences and societal constructs related to gender can impact the outcomes of R&I projects. When we talk about gender in R&I, it is not only talking about binary differences, but it is a broader spectrum which also includes the needs and contributions of non-binary and queer people. As you see here, for the intersectionality, we all need to consider sex, gender, education, sexual orientation, income, culture, age, religion, ethnicity, and race. Why do we need to consider about them? Because, for example, in healthcare research, incorporating gender analysis can mean recognizing that symptoms and responses to treat for cardiovascular diseases differ significantly between men and women. By including this analysis, healthcare innovations become more effective and inclusive, addressing the needs of diverse population. In Europe, the European gender equality strategy emphasizes that gender dimension in R&I are crucial for impactful policies. And here you see from their European Economic and Societal Committee's reports, you see gender-related sentences everywhere right now, from European drugs agenda to health risk cancer plan, from energy For instance, climate change policies often impact men and women differently. Women, especially young women, have been at the forefront of environmental activism, leading change and advocating for policy shifts. In the clean energy transition, we see that more women experience energy poverty than men, which is critical consideration when designing the policies for R&I. When we shift for society in European framework programs, when society involved, when we look at this picture, we see from 5th framework program to Horizon Europe, you see the change. At the beginning, it started with human research potential and the social economic knowledge base. It continued with science and society. Science is society, again, we saw in 7th framework program. And finally, in Horizon Europe, it shifted to science for society. I didn't know that Paul is also a physicist, because I am a physicist too. And here, in this slide, we see that they are shaping our future. How? Not just physicists, basic research, freedom and responsibility. This slide here illustrates us how different types of research contribute to society by combining the concepts of freedom and responsibility. As researchers, we often balance our scientific freedom with a sense of duty to society, ensuring that our work has positive and meaningful impacts. The matrix here you see categorize different types of researchers, from basic research to pure applied research. You know well about Madame Marie Curie, Albert Einstein. They have been performing basic research. One is on radioactivity, and you know what Albert Einstein was working on. And now, at the beginning, they were just illustrate how purely knowledge-driven research can lay the groundwork for the future innovations with the transformative societal impact. Use-inspired basic research, here represented by Ada Lovelace and Louis Pasteur. This research category seeks to answer fundamental questions while also addressing practical challenges. Pasteur, for example, combines scientific curiosity with a focus on solving real scientific problems, which are microbiology and vaccines. And use-inspired research aligns scientific inquiry with societal needs, advancing both knowledge and practical solutions. Pure applied research. A Turkish researcher, Özlem Türeci, who co-developed mRNA vaccine technology at BioNTech, and by historical figures like Thomas Edison. This research is purposefully directed toward solving specific, immediate challenges like what she has done to solve COVID-19 issue. And on the right-hand side, we see the balance of freedom and responsibility in research. Researchers have the freedom to explore and innovate, but with that freedom comes the responsibility to direct our efforts toward societal and ethical goals. This aligns with Maria Mazzucato's idea that innovation should be harnessed not just for economic gain, but also for wider social and policy aims. European gender equality, again, this strategy emphasizes that to reach our sustainable development goals, which is which really needs SDG 5, gender equality. Gender considerations are integral to achieving all these sustainability goals. By gender dimension in policy making, especially in areas like climate action, energy transition, and digitalization, we can ensure that these policies support everyone equally and contribute to long-term resilience and reach our sustainable development goals totally. And as a regulation from European Union, they state that in order to be successful and socially acceptable for all, the transition has to be fair and inclusive, and all possible mechanisms should be deployed to mitigate adverse consequences. Again, from Eurobarometer results, their surveys show the different focus on research and innovation topics between women and men. Here, I try to give 3 examples from energy, mobility, and climate protection. And here, as you see, 82% of women are more likely than men to say the current cost of their household energy needs is a serious problem. And in mobility, men are more likely than women to use a car as their main mode of daily transport, while women are more likely than men to say they walk. Furthermore, women are more likely to say they take public transport compared to men. And for the climate protection, women are more likely than men to say climate change frightens them. Yes, we saw the differences, and we have to tackle this issue. But how we can tackle this issue? With the initiatives, and as Professor Hasan Mandal mentioned, these problems are really interconnected to each other. We have to collaborate and co-create together with some of the projects and initiatives. Here, I would like to give an example of DIMI's initiative, which aims to close gender and diversity data gaps by applying an intersectional approach to research. This means not only gathering data on gender, but considering factors like age, disability, socioeconomic status together. Such data sets are invaluable for inclusive R&I, as they allow us to develop innovations that reflect and serve society more fully. For instance, if we analyze how different groups access digital services, we can improve these services to be more accessible to older adults, people with disabilities, and those from various socioeconomic backgrounds. We can't do research wrong. What happens if we do it wrong? Doing research wrong costs lives and money. For example, between 1997 to 2000, 10 drugs were withdrawn from the US market. Do you know why? Because of life-threatening health effects. 8 of these posed greater health risks for women than men. Not only does developing a drug in the current market cost billions, but when drugs failed, they caused human suffering and their death. And these days, countries and research institutes, research funding organizations, they fix the numbers, focuses on increasing women's and underrepresented groups' participation. Why? Not to do research wrong, not to lose money and our lives. And they fix the institutions, promote inclusive equality in careers through structural change in research organizations, and fix the knowledge or gendered innovation stimulates excellence in science and technology by integrating sex, gender, and intersectional analysis into research. what this figure describes us, we really need gender innovation because, as you see from the right-hand side of the graph, sex-related biological factors are much smaller compared to gender-related social factors. So we really need to tackle in this issue and reach our Sustainable Development Goal, SDG 5. Integrating sex, gender, and intersectional analysis into research design has the potential to offer new perspectives, pose new questions, and importantly, enhance social equity by ensuring that research findings are applicable across the whole society and the environment. We have to move. Yes, the shift in the innovation model, as again the president of WAITRO, Hasan Mandal, mentioned, from now on it should be quadruple helix model, which incorporates academia, industry, government, and society, demonstrates the importance of collaboration, cooperation in innovation. This model opens doors for women to participate actively across sectors, from policy to technology. For example, in Sweden, the quadruple helix approach has led the gender-sensitive approach in STEM, helping increase women's representation and influence in technology and research. Yeah, integrating the gender dimension is a lever for transformative social change. By proactively incorporate inclusivity into R&I process, we can shape innovations that meet diverse needs. Consider AI development. When women are involved in AI design, we see fewer gender biases in our algorithms, leading to fairer and more accurate technology for everyone. To shape our future better, we need both technological and societal foresight. There should be it really requires a balance between technological advancement and societal foresight. This combination is powerful when we incorporate diverse perspectives, particularly women's voice, which have often been underrepresented in technology. For instance, gender-inclusive approaches in renewable energy solutions ensure these technologies are designed to benefit all, including women-led households facing energy poverty. Europe has been changing, the world has been changing, and we have been performing a lot of European Union projects, starting from gender action plus inspire. These projects are more on policy side, but here I would like to give another example. Here it is Genesis. This project is an excellent example of gendered mission-oriented research in energy transition. It is not directly a policy or strategy project, it is directly related with energy transition. It explores the energy system as an interconnected ecosystem involving technology, policy, and society. This approach acknowledges that diverse stakeholders, including women, play a role in shaping sustainable energy solutions. This project highlights how inclusivity-driven, mission-oriented innovation with real-world impact. Yeah, we can't do it alone. It is a global issue, and we have to work together both with government, society, research funding and performing organizations, and also industry. of course, for performing responsible research. The concept of responsible research and innovation process emphasizes the importance of aligning R&I with societal needs. Integrating gender consideration into R&I makes innovations not only more ethical, but also more impactful. For instance, designing health technologies with gendered perspectives leads to solutions that cater to all populations, resulting in more effective healthcare systems. It is not the innovation, it is also communication has been changing. There is a paradigm shift in how we communicate science, moving from one-way knowledge dissemination model to an interactive and inclusive one. Science communication today must engage diverse voices and perspectives, making R&I more transparent and accessible. This inclusiveness strengthens public trust in science and encourages broader participation, particularly from women and marginalized communities. Yeah, as we close, I urge each of you to champion gender inclusivity in your research and innovation endeavors. By doing so, we ensure that the solutions we create address the needs of all segments of society. Gender inclusivity in R&I is not just a box to check, but it is a strategy for achieving real, sustainable, meaningful impact that will resonate across generations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Celik, and I think I like what I'm hearing in the message, that we're different. And there's no point denying those differences, I think, but to solve the problems of sustainability, we're going to need everyone. So I'd like to see WAITRO start a working group, actually, to try to ensure equality of opportunity for everybody, not just gender, but for everybody to contribute. Now, impact licensing is a concept that I only discovered in the summer when I ran into Johan Moyerson in Istanbul, I believe. It's an innovative tool designed to facilitate the sustainable transfer of technology to low and middle income countries in support of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. And Dr. Moyerson brings over 2 decades of experience in social business innovation and scaling social enterprises on an international scale. And he's agreed to speak with us. He's also in a breakout session this afternoon, but now he's speaking on impact licensing as a strategic instrument for sustainable technology transfer. Please welcome Johan Moyerson.
Hello. It's a great honor to present at WAITRO 2024 because the tagline from innovation to impact could be the tagline of the Impact Licensing Initiative. So I feel really home here. Yeah. My presentation is an open call as well for collaboration because we are a sort of ecosystem organization. So we are really looking for technology holders, can be universities, can be companies. We are looking for investors to invest in tech transfer, in sustainable tech transfer, and we are looking for entrepreneurs and social entrepreneurs. I would also make a small jump on the presentation before, because gender is really important to us as well, because a lot of technologies that has been developed are developed predominantly by engineers, by men, but societal impact is predominantly owned, sadly enough, by women. So there's a whole translation to be done for sustainable tech transfer from a gender perspective. So I'm an entrepreneur, a social entrepreneur. In the last 20 years, I worked a lot in that domain to bring societal return together with economic return. And being involved in that space, I was working a lot in Europe in service innovation, in business model design, but not too much in technologies. And if you want to have impact at scale, technologies can be a good multiplier. And the reason why I was working not too much in technology is that a lot of universities and companies don't know how to transfer, to license out technologies for societal valorization, for societal impact. There is no instrument out there. So that's why I started up the Impact Licensing Initiative to develop a tool set together with IP experts to really help to facilitate technologies to societal markets. Yeah. So I started up that as a sort of social entrepreneur 5 years ago, but now it's a part, impact licensing is a part of the IP roadmap of the EU, and we are really scaling up across the EU and beyond. So what's impact licensing? So I started it up 5 years ago as a non-profit organization, as a broker organization between, on the one hand side, technology holders. And technology holders can be companies, can be universities, can be any people group that has an invention. So it can be, so when I'm using the word technology, it can be really a patented technology, but it can be also a methodology, can be a trade secret, can be a data set, can be a trademark. And what we do, we screen this technology not from an economic valorization perspective, but really from an impact perspective. And if we see high potential of a key enabling technology, we start to negotiate a sub-license to use this technology for a certain impact purpose. And what's the difference between a normal license and an impact license is, in a normal license, you ask or you negotiate an agreement to use the technology for a certain region or for a certain target group or a certain sector, to have the exclusivity to use this technology to make money out of it. We negotiate in an impact license that we can have the exclusive rights to use the technology for a certain impact purpose. So we have a whole kind of portfolio technologies in license, for example, to increase the income of small farmholders in Africa. If we use this technology outside that impact purpose, we have a sort of IP infringement. So these are long-term agreements to use a technology for a certain impact use. Yeah? So that's really the intention of the licensing agreement. Therefore, we have to measure it. So we have really in the licensing agreement key indicators how we're going to measure that to verify there is no IP infringements. And we are working really together. It's a win-win. It's between economic and societal valorization. And to explain that is that, yeah, if you go 20 years, 30 years back, investment was a black and white space. So either you invest for profit or you did philanthropy for the goods. Now, in the last 20, 30 years, there has been a whole kind of instruments developed that combines economic valorization and societal valorization. Some are more profit first, others are more impact first, but they are combining it in a win-win. Well, now in IP, we are still behind. Either you protect your technology for economic valorization, or you do nothing. A lot of technologies that have societal purpose are not protected, which makes it really difficult to make it bankable, because you cannot find investors, because there's always some innovation to do, and also you cannot really be sure, verify that this technology is really used for the purpose, the impact purpose you have developed it. An impact license allows that. So what we do and what we want to contribute to is really to make that spectrum also in the IP world, to combine economic valorization and societal valorization as a way to really expand the usage of technology to hold that space. That's why we want to work in. Now, we are not a philanthropical organization. We are really negotiating key enabling technologies from universities and companies, which is a hard negotiation, because companies, it's really their key assets. For universities, it's a really important income as well. So what we try to do is to find win-win in these agreements. And one of the main elements that really worked in our cases is that we promise that all the improvements we make to adapt the technology, we bring it back, they can have it back for free for their core markets. So because once we have negotiated an impact licensing agreement, we co-create with people, with organizations in the South, a sort of technology intervention profile to really think through how this technology can be used, can be produced in the global South. And through developing these key enabling, these design requirements, there is actually a whole innovation roadmap that comes out. So we developed a partnership to do these innovations. We test them out, but these improvements makes these technologies often cheaper, more adaptable for global use, and therefore more attractive for global markets. So it's a way, impact licensing is not only a tech transfer, it's also a frugal innovation strategy for companies to really give technologies for markets that they are not really seeing as core, but by using them there are new IP coming out. And we have showcased that in the last 4 or 5 years with 5 ventures. So the model that we work is we screen technologies, we negotiate impact licensing agreements, we co-create with actors that are going to use the technology, the design requirements of the adaptation. We make a partnership of companies, universities, a whole ecosystem, investors to fund and to develop the pilot technology that is an improvement of the key enabling technology. We demonstrate, and then we find the first client and we scale. So impact licensing is screening of technologies, negotiating impact licensing agreements, and then acting as a sort of accelerator to really adapt the technology, but also to develop new IP. And that in a model that is funded by investors. So it's a combination of a non-profit actor that really acts as a sort of clearinghouse to negotiate impact licensing agreements, to screen technologies and impact licensing agreements, and an accelerator, a studio model that really raise capital from investors, do the whole innovation, protect the innovation again to impact licensing terms, but really also look for the first client and a leadership to bring these ventures to the global South. And that's really the model, because the strength of these impact licensing agreements is these are long-term agreements. They are 25 to 35 years long for the whole cycle of the IP, which makes that we can really transfer the knowledge and the rights to improve to the South, where we can think about local production, but also local innovation. And that's what we really want to obtain. So instead to write a big book, we started really hands-on. So we went to companies and universities, and we had developed a whole portfolio in sustainable agriculture, in clean energy, in health. And we are expanding that at the moment very exponentially. I will give 2 examples just to show how hands-on it works. So one is one application that we have developed on cold chain. So we obtained a portfolio of technologies from companies in Europe on passive cold chain. Passive cold chain keeps boxes cold without access of energy. Yeah. And one of the main technologies that we have worked on, a patented technology, is called thermostatic batteries. These are stainless steel cool plates that you have to cool down first. And once they're cooled down, you put them in a box, and then this box keeps 2 or 3 days cold. So these thermostatic batteries are very stable in conductivity. And so what we can do is really develop this further in a way that we can use it for transport for medicines and vaccines in the last mile. So one application that we have developed are medicines and vaccine carriers for the last mile that keeps cold chain up to 21 days. without access of energy. But we developed also an algorithm, because we have universities that can estimate how long this box keeps his cold chain, which is very new. And because normally you get an alert when it's too late. We can really have, through the algorithm that we have developed ourselves, we can proactively signal the user that these boxes will go out of the cold chain range. Secondly, we developed a portfolio of solar freezers to cool down these boxes, these thermostatic batteries, and we developed a portfolio of IoT technologies. On that, so we developed a whole kind of solution for transport for medicines and vaccines, but also to use for the increase of the income of small farm holders in Africa, starting in Ethiopia for milk. Well, we have developed these stainless cool plates. We made them in bowls. And these bowls, you can cool them down in solar freezers. You can bring them in any sort of milk can, and bring it to the small farm holder. If the small farm holder pours his milk in there, it goes from 37 to 4 degrees and keeps its temperature for 48 hours. Which means in Ethiopia that the evening milk is not collected, which is a loss of income of more than 40% of these small farm holders. With this solution, we can solve that. And so we are now bringing that technology in a franchise model to the market. And we are now setting up our first cooperative that's for 1,000 farmers to work on the cold chain, and we will continue to scale it up next year to 5 cooperatives. Also in West Africa, in Senegal, Mali, and Niger, we are setting up our first clients. Another example is Kosha. It's a technology from a university. It's a technology that was finalist last year of the Innovation Awards of the Best Invention in the EU. And it's about hydrogen solar panels. These are solar panels developed in the university that absorbs during the night humidity out of the air, and with the sunlight produces hydrogen during the day. These are panels, you put them on the roof, instead of electricity, it produces hydrogen. So we have again negotiated an impact licensing agreement on that to bring this to the low and middle income countries immediately, and not after further industrialization in Europe. Because we do think it's an off-grid, decentralized solution that can produce hydrogen anywhere, everywhere. It's a plug and play, you put it there and it works. So, but what can we do with hydrogen? Well, we made we looked to solutions. And if you store hydrogen at low pressure, it's much more safer and much more cost effective than on high pressure. Mostly hydrogen is stored in high pressure, which is more complex. It's also from a safety issue, but if you keep it in low pressure, it's like biogas. And so we developed with textile companies in Germany and in Belgium a bag that can store hydrogen. We developed a burner, and we developed a cooking device and a fridge. We tested it out in Namibia. We opened it with the president of Namibia and the Belgian King. And we are setting up now our first installations in Namibia in a school, in a snack bar, and also in refugee camps next year in Uganda and Rwanda. The model that we are developing is again a franchise model where you have an African entrepreneur that runs a hydrogen solar park that fills these bags and sells these bags through microgrids or to just transport to the community. The solution from 2028 will be cheaper than LPG gas. So just to give you certain examples how it works, so we screen these technologies, we negotiate impact licensing agreements, we adapt the technology, we test it out, and we take the first clients. So now we have pilot tested this because we are a pilot kind of organization. So that got the attention of the EU And the mission that we will want to develop is to develop throughout Europe, but also beyond Europe, a network of clearinghouses that do the same what we are doing. And to develop a sort of technology pool of impact licensed technologies that can be used for really societal change. And here I will stop my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Johan. I have a long history of intellectual property patents in my career, and in the area of sustainability, I think too often they can become bottlenecks. And that's one of the most innovative ideas I've heard for eliminating those bottlenecks. And I hope it's got people's minds turning about how we can use that in the WAITRO ecosystem. Now, I'm going to try this only once. Dr. Dina Dayalan Bhaktavatsalaam has a very long name, and for reasons that should now be self-evident, we usually call him Dean. He's got one of the most international resumes that I've ever encountered. He's the Chief Science Officer at R-Bio in Houston in the US, and a PhD in biochemistry from the University of Cologne in Germany. Also a graduate certificate in healthcare management from Rice Business in Houston, and an MBA, Master of Business Administration, from the Indira Gandhi National Open University in India. And his presentation, Hyperlocal Innovation, The Road to Global Impact, is going to explore how localized innovation can create global benefits. I think it's going to be really interesting, and it's going to feed very nicely into the final presentation, which is going to take local to the extreme. So please welcome Dr. Dean.
Good morning, everybody. Sorry if I'm dozing off. I'm still in the jet lag. What I would like to first say is thank you, Paul, WAITRO, Professor Lee, JITRI, NICE, for this incredible opportunity. It's an honor for me to stand here in the presence of distinguished leaders and brilliant minds from around the world. To be honest, I was a little scared. My content is not fit for the summit, but after listening from Professor Hasan, I was a little relieved because he emphasized what I'm going to talk is the communities are not just a stakeholder or customer. You have to include community as part of developing innovation and adapting it. So going into the topic, I would like to explore the power of hyperlocal innovation, which is very near to my heart. I'm always focused on hyperlocal innovation and how it leads to a very truly transformative global impact. Let's start with a very simple question. Why focus on hyperlocal innovation? In reality, the best solution emerges from within the community that you aim to support for its needs and challenges. So let me share a funny story from Ernesto Ciroli's experience. Before that, how many of you have heard Ernesto Ciroli's talk? Anybody? So if not, please listen to his TED Talk. It's titled Shut Up and Listen. It's an amazing presentation. He's an amazing public speaker, and he's an Italian author. I was amazed the way he explained how his failures led to understand his interest into community development. This story is in 1970s. He jokingly talked in the TED Talk. He was part of an NGO, and so what they said is, okay, they sent him along with a team to Africa, go and teach them how to farm tomatoes. So he and his team, obviously, they were so excited and proud that they have this opportunity to teach people how to grow tomatoes. And they went to this place in Africa, and then they never interacted with the community. They went and seed the plant, they grow the plant. In few weeks, they had amazing big tomatoes, better than what grew in Italy. So they were so proud and excited, saying that, oh, we solved the problem for the community, right? Just before the harvestation, a herd of hippos came out of the river, completely rampaged the whole field. These guys were shocked, and they went and asked the community, hey, why didn't you tell about hippos? Guess what? The community then asked, you never asked us. So this is what always is being, right? We always develop technologies of innovative ideas, we think, and then go stuff into the community, which doesn't fit in. So coming to my point, with regard to the hyperlocal innovation, so as I move into my talks, I would like to walk you through some of the case studies, what has been already proven and created a global impact. And then over other part of the talk, I would like to address some of the challenges that they face and using some innovative systematic strategies, how you can overcome these challenges and be successful. So moving to the first example of case study, this is one example I'm very passionate about to talk about is the community-driven initiative. This is one example that stands out. This is Amul Dairy Cooperative, which was started in 1946, just before we got our independence. So this was an independent activist started this particular cooperative to address exploitation of Indian dairy farmers. So what they did was they organized a local farmer cooperative so they could secure fair prices and improve their livelihoods. So this led to a transformative local community to become a global impact, and they eventually grew into one of the largest producers in the milk and milk product industry. So it's a $9 billion industry right now. So the Amul's journey has grown into it created a white revolution in India, right? So this is an exact example that I would like to bring it out, that although this is a compelling example of a community-driven, it incorporated most of the SDGs as part of their DNA in implementing into the community. That is one of the reasons why they became a very global impact. Another inspiring story I've heard is the community cooker in Nairobi. So in 2008, an architect, Jim Archer, he developed this technology specifically address waste management in Nairobi's informal settlements. So specifically, this technology was to convert waste into fuel for cooking, so they could reduce pollution and improve public health. So this they were struggling to scale up, but since they were able to integrate several of the SDGs, which is very specific to the community-driven, they were able to scale up and inspire a true transformative global impact. So another example, I specifically tried to pull these case studies across the globe, so I want to make sure this is not biased hyperlocal innovation is creating a global impact. Another interesting story, excellent story, is a small town in UK, Todmorden. They harnessed the power of community engagement and turned unused urban space into community garden. So what they did, this enabled them to not only provide food security, but also community well-being, right? So because of that, this not only helped the local community, but inspired a powerful global movement, actually. If you see, I think in the US, there's so many community gardens specifically during COVID time. In Chicago, so many community gardens were opening up. Again, they were also advancing very focused on the SDGs, that it can create an impact for the local community rather than thinking big. Stepping back in time for a historic example, I don't have to explain much. This story comes from this land. Silk production, right? In ancient China, silk production was a guarded secret among specific communities. And what happened? Due to demand and growth of silk for traded goods, they started creating a localized trade across Chinese border. But then the demand grew across the globe, Asia, India, Rome, Persia. So because of this moved and created a longer route, which became a historic Silk Road, right? So what began as a traditional localized network that facilitated trade among small communities, it became a global movement and bridged entire continent, creating trade and driving global cultural and economic integration. While this operated centuries before the concept of SDG, it was part of the DNA that they aligned with several modern SDGs, in fact. Looking back, it's impressive, actually. So we are all talking after so many centuries still. Yes, hyperlocal efforts are really amazing, effective, but scaling is always challenge. Like any other business, funding, resources is always a big challenge. Lack of infrastructure. Some of the example, Amul, before the independence, they didn't have homegrown technology. They had to create partnerships to build this technology and support the farmers. Contextual differences. Typical example, Incredible Edible worked very well in UK, but then it's not necessary. It can work in other climate, weather, and similar attitude among the communities for community garden, right? So you have to handle all this kind of various factors that creates challenges for scaling up. Maintaining community engagement is another big challenge, because as the project expands, you see that keeping up the passion and the commitment among different communities is going to be always difficult when you scale. And finally, regulatory barriers. When it comes to technology, specific to whether it's a health or environment, it's always going to be region-specific regulatory bodies, which is always looking after the quality and compliance. So every innovation has to go through these challenges. Yes, challenges and hurdles can be daunting, but think in a positive way. They also present opportunities for innovation and collaboration. So as long as the SDG goals are integrated as part of the roadmap, it will create a ripple effect, turning local impact into global progress. So, the challenges we see, and we are going into partnerships. So, the power of partnerships is, it's a true power lies in collaborations. As Professor Hasan clearly showed, a helix combination of university, business, funding agencies, NGOs, everybody has to develop this partnership. Only then this is going to foster resource sharing, innovation, and it creates a network to replicate these successful models in different regions. That's the key. Of course, you need all these partnerships, collaborations is important, but you need a systematic strategies for scaling up. Leveraging technology for a wider reach. I can't state enough about this because we are in a historical moment period of AI revolution. I can understand I'm sure the whole community here can relate to how the AI is going to impact our life and businesses. Again, building partnerships to share resources, knowledge will help scale up the operations. Empower the local leaders. That's the key, because you provide them training and resources, they become your catalyst for scaling those initiatives. And finally, adapting these models to local context. So every community is unique, right? You have to make sure the successful projects adapt and fit their model into the local culture, needs, and resources. Only then it's going to really get adapted well and going to make an impact in the society. But of course, the core principle has to be retained. So the biggest challenge we have seen, some of the strategies how we can overcome, but then are the strategies good enough? No, it requires a lot of action, commitment, and collaboration. Steady collaboration and commitment is needed. So we have seen that all this hyperlocal innovation again and again, they've been successful because whatever challenges they faced, they pivoted, adapted, and they created these partnerships. And more important is they integrated the SDG as part of the DNA in the roadmap of scaling. Only then it's going to be successful to take this hyperlocal innovations to the global impact. So to kind of conclude, I would say it's not just about thinking the next big idea. I would love to say that recognize your hyper-local initiatives that lead already a mark, making a difference in your community. Find those. And finally, I would say let's take this lesson forward, transform into actionable strategies to achieve sustainable development goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dean. Now you see in our final plenary presentation of the morning how this all comes together. So a couple of years ago, I was starting to think from my journeys around WAITRO that we were thinking the wrong way about indigenous societies and technology. We're always trying to push our technology into indigenous societies. It occurred to me that we would be better placed looking at the technology they have and understanding how to connect that to a global market so that what flows the other way is money to make them richer. And at the time, I happened to be sitting on a bus in a traffic jam in Rio de Janeiro, I think, next to a very interesting gentleman, Professor Sechaba Beritsong, who is the manager of the Indigenous Knowledge Systems program at South Africa's CSIR Institute. And today he's going to speak on nurturing indigenous technology for global sustainability. And of course, putting a Chinese perspective on this, indigenous technology is very relevant to an enormous field called traditional Chinese medicine, which has a great potential to connect the global markets. So please welcome Professor Sechaba Beritsong for his speech.
Good morning, everyone. I think Dr. D has just covered my presentation. We can just go to lunch. Yes. So I've been asked to give a talk on how to nurture indigenous technologies for global impact and sustainability. So my name is Sechaba Beritsong. You know what Sechaba means? I'm from South Africa. I speak Sesotho, and we have 9 official languages. So one of them is Southern Sesotho. Sechaba means nation, like you are the nation, right? So that's what Sechaba means. So I'm from CSIR, South Africa, and I'm the Indigenous Knowledge Systems Program Manager within the Advanced Agriculture and Food Cluster. So, how do I? So this is the outline of my presentation. So my talk is central on indigenous knowledge systems. So I will introduce you to the conceptual framework of indigenous knowledge systems, and then the significance, intellectual property issues, protection mechanisms that can be protected, that can be adopted, and how indigenous communities really innovate using their indigenous knowledge, and then also covering the different areas where indigenous knowledge systems can be applicable, the challenges, strategies, and then provide the high-level recommendations, hopefully to WAITRO. Keeps on going back. Okay. So indigenous knowledge systems encompass the knowledge, the skills, traditional practices, the wisdom, and traditions of indigenous communities. It also includes indigenous innovations and technologies. So these systems are dynamic, and they can be adapted to different changes, environments, and they are deeply rooted in the cultural heritage, social, and ecological context of communities. So they are based on spiritual rituals and beliefs, as well as taboos. Hence, these are systems that cannot be measured using or maybe validated using modern scientific technologies. That is why it's so difficult to really validate them, like for instance, as a natural scientist in the laboratory. And then also most countries are finding challenges to come up with policies on indigenous knowledge systems for socioeconomic development. So the communities have got this rich knowledge and the skills, right? Which they use to understand their local context and their surroundings, and then they find solutions to their problems through experimentations, right? Like doing research in the lab, they do the experimentations in their own context, and they innovate in the problems to come up with the solutions to their issues. So that experimentations comes new knowledge, and that can be regarded as their intellectual property, which must be protected. Unfortunately, it cannot be using conventional intellectual property rights like patents. So indigenous knowledge systems by its nature is communal. It's shared, it is in the public domain. So hence, difficulty to protect it using conventional intellectual property rights. I honestly don't know why it keeps on going back. Okay. So these are some of the applications where indigenous knowledge systems can be found in agriculture, where communities can use their knowledge for crop selection, intercropping, and then also they can even predict the seasons in which they can plant their crops. Animal husbandry, veterinary medicines using certain plant species to treat animal diseases. And then also in the management of their natural resources, like plant genetic resources, they're able to use that. In healthcare, identifying certain plant species which they can formulate into traditional medicines to treat a variety of ailments. And then also in energy, like renewable energies, they're able to identify certain plants in the forestry that they can use to produce energy. This is a challenge. I think now I need to use my indigenous way. Okay. Yeah. So when it comes to intellectual property issues, as I've mentioned before, by its nature, indigenous knowledge is on the public domain because it can be transmitted from one generation to another or from one mark to another through dances, through storytelling. So now, but because of that, the communities have the right to their knowledge and to control it. And then hence there is a whole lot of movement around the world where communities are really crying out for the protection of their indigenous knowledge. And this brings me to the next point, where biopiracy and misappropriation of community indigenous knowledge has been really misappropriated. I don't want to use stolen by big pharmaceutical companies to develop plant species, identify blockbuster chemical compounds, which they can develop into active pharmaceutical ingredients for drug development. So now recently, WAITRO now, no, not WAITRO, WIPO, World Intellectual Property, adopted a new treaty addressing IP issues in indigenous knowledge systems relating to genetic resources and indigenous knowledge or traditional knowledge. So now the treaty requires that all the patent applications lodged by the inventors, they should disclose the origin of where the invention related to the plant is coming from, who are the communities, and then also making sure that you enter into relevant legal framework to ensure that those communities benefit from that invention and the commercialization of the intellectual property. So for now, so what we need is the mechanisms on how to protect this knowledge that the communities have. So documentation is very important. And this is one of the key challenges in indigenous knowledge systems. How do we document this knowledge? Remember, this knowledge is held in here by communities. We have the wisdom keepers. They transfer it to the next generation, but it never been documented. This is where the challenge is. So we need to document it, introduce the ICT-based tools to create database, and that can be used to challenge any patents that can be approved based on the inventions informed by indigenous knowledge systems. Like, for instance, in India, the traditional digital database, it is linked to many patent office. Then if you take a plant from India and then you subject it to R&D, come up with novel chemical compound and then protect it, then you can immediately pick it up, and then you'll be required to acknowledge the communities as holders of that indigenous knowledge. So another mechanism is contract. This is what we use at the CSIR when we engage with the communities to understand their indigenous knowledge. So we first enter into non-disclosure agreement to explore opportunities. If there are opportunities for R&D, then we move on to another contract, which is the research collaboration agreement, and then move on into the actual research. So if that research has a commercial value, then we enter into access and benefit sharing, because we have the laws in South Africa on Biodiversity Act, which seeks to protect the indigenous knowledge, and then also compels private sector companies, research institutions, universities to enter into ABS contracts with the communities to ensure that communities' knowledge is protected and the communities are recognized and communities benefit from the commercialization of the intellectual property informed by indigenous knowledge. In fact, after this session, I'll be giving case studies from CSIR on how we negotiate these contracts with the communities. Then another mechanism is community biocultural protocols. These are the guidelines which communities develop for outsiders to say, if you enter our community settings, this is a protocol that you need to follow. That is culturally based, that is respectful of the rights of the communities, ensuring that these communities really knowledge is protected, is not misappropriated, and they benefit if they have agreed to share that knowledge with you. Another mechanism is countries' policies, legislation. So countries, especially on the African continent, we are really looking behind in terms of developing national laws that protect the indigenous knowledge systems of communities. And then in South Africa, we have a very comprehensive legal system. We have the Indigenous Knowledge Systems Policy of 2007, and then we have the Promotion, Management, Development, and Protection of Indigenous Knowledge Act. We have Biodiversity, and it's quite comprehensive, including the Patent Acts. They have been amended to accommodate the protection of indigenous knowledge. So this is very important from the national context. So coming to technology, as we all know, technologies are all about the tools, the skills, the knowledge. So the communities really have that ability as well, as much as natural scientists believe that they are more clever than communities, but communities are more, because we believe, or personally I believe, indigenous knowledge can improve the science. So without the technologies that we have now, particularly the medicines that we are taking, 25% of those medicines have been developed from plants that have indigenous knowledge. So this is how the communities innovate. So I want to challenge everyone, those who think that communities in their context are not able to innovate, ask yourself how in many centuries, how communities were able to survive and sustain themselves. And this is how they innovate. So they will identify a problem and then go through the selection process. And then from there, take out what is desirable from that process and then transform it into a technology which they can exploit through commercialization process and then finding application in different areas: agriculture, health, medicine, food, water, climate change, and conservation of biodiversity. So these are some of the indigenous technologies that communities have developed in the area of biodiversity conservation, like in the fire management, water management, as well as sustainable harvesting. So communities are able to manage their own resources using their own indigenous knowledge systems, as well as the technologies. So I'm gonna rush through this. Then health, all these traditional medicines. You see those white cups there? Those are the traditional medicines. So the Chinese have been able to really upscale their local technologies in the area of traditional medicines. And then the question is, how have they been able to achieve that? So that is a classical example of one of the indigenous technologies that have been upscaled. And then in the area of climate change, communities are able to adapt to various climate change environment, and then are able to conserve their biodiversity and then conserve water resources. So these are the challenges which Dr. D has alluded to. So I'm just going to highlight on this lack of recognition and the respect for communities, particularly by the modern scientists when they are doing research in collaboration with the communities. So we need to recognize communities. Even in the contract, even in the research publications, communities are usually, if you go to the research publication right at the end, they're being recognized, but they're not being part of the research authors. So we are busy now updating a publication where we are recognizing communities as part of the authors in the research publication, in addition to acknowledging them for their contribution to the research that we have conducted. And then also economic pressures, limited resources communities they have. Those are the challenges. I've spoken to intellectual property issues, and then as well as language loss, especially young people as they migrate from rural areas to the cities, they tend to lose their indigenous languages. That is also a challenge. So now coming to the strategies. So we need to really promote integration of indigenous knowledge system with scientific knowledge system. Collaboration, very important on how we can achieve that integration. And then Professor Hasim this morning mentioned co-creation. And this is one of the South African agenda now through the white paper, saying we need to promote inclusive innovation, meaning that we need to co-create the knowledge together with the communities. And then promotion of indigenous-led education, very important. We need to have curriculums that are dedicated to indigenous knowledge systems. They shouldn't be hidden or submerged into African studies. You see indigenous knowledge systems there, but we need to have dedicated programs. In South Africa, we have a Bachelor of Indigenous Knowledge Systems at 3 universities that have been previously disadvantaged. And policy, I've spoken to this, very important. Government needs to really be intentional, develop policies that are implementable, and they should include communities' involvement during the formulation and implementation, and knowledge exchange, like here. So I want to challenge WAITRO in this kind of platforms. We need to have NGOs being represented, being part of this platform to really raise awareness, educate the young people in the natural sciences space about their indigenous knowledge systems. And then investment. Dr. D spoken about that. We need to put more financial resources into projects that involve communities. And this is high-level recommendations. Integration through collaboration, co-creation, as well as introduction into university curriculum. The Chinese are well ahead of the world. We have dedicated traditional Chinese medicines, universities, and so forth. We need to adopt that kind of model. And then also cultural preservation, very important. And then policy formulation, implementation, involving communities, very, very important. Partnerships, collaborations, this has been mentioned, very, very important. So this is where I would really challenge WAITRO, really to consider the next summit. Start small, invite non-governmental organizations having big projects in their communities, social innovation, then those social scientists, they need to be here, also be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Professor Sachaba. So that's the end of the opening plenaries. It's not the end of the summit, it's just the beginning. And I hope you'll see from the speeches we had this morning that a story starts to develop, and I hope, if nothing else, it makes you think about some new ideas. This afternoon, there are breakout sessions where many of our speakers from this morning will further develop and go into more depth about the ideas that they've mentioned. This is a good time to put up the QR code, if anyone back there can get the QR code for the photographs back up so people can photograph it. Just 3 points of administration then. I want to remind you again about the posters. A lot of work went into the SDG impact posters, and it's really the cornerstone of this summit. You, the audience, have a chance to vote on not your favorite posters, but the ones you think have the best investor argument for investment. And if you look in your package, you'll find this page, which tells you all about the criteria, but most importantly, there are 5 stickers down here at the bottom which contain the WAITRO logo, and you can take those stickers and you can stick them on your favorite poster, and the ones that get the most votes are going to be the ones that are put into the finals tomorrow afternoon for the pitch competition. So please don't lose your chance to vote. There's a little card underneath each one where you can put your stickers. But also, as I said, please read the criteria and understand what the judges are looking for first. If you want a bit of fun, as I said, there's a touch screen out there where you can select each of the posters, even if it's your poster, and you can read the preliminary feedback from the judges on what they still thought was missing or what they thought was good or not so good about each poster. You can go through every one. And the finals will be tomorrow afternoon in the last plenary session. Lunch, I'm told, is 1 floor down on the 1st floor. It's a simple box lunch, so you can take it wherever you can find a spare space to sit. If you're interested in finding out more about the JITRI and NICE ecosystems, there will be organized tours of the big exhibition downstairs on the G floor at 12:45, and you're welcome to go down, and some of our guides will take you around and show you more about that. I think that's everything, except please enjoy the breakouts this afternoon. It's a bit more relaxed this afternoon. You won't have to listen to me again, at least until the reception. Please come back for the reception where you get a chance to mingle around the posters and put all your votes, and don't forget the stickers. So thank you all, and I want to especially thank the plenary speakers from this morning and our guest VIPs doing a great job and for taking time out of their schedules to come and talk to us. So thank you all.